1-2 punch from the real world for Donald Trump today. Moody's, the apolitical credit agency, just gave Trump's economy a downgrade over worries his big, beautiful tax bill will add to the U.S. debt. And Walmart's decision and announcement that it plans to raise prices to cover the cost of Trump's tariffs earned them a schoolyard bully taunt from Donald Trump, who told Walmart to, quote, eat the tariffs. The downgrade by Moody's puts an end to the last AAA credit rating the U.S. had. Moody's citing the GOP tax bill currently being worked on by Congress as adding to decades of mounting debt. New York Times reports it like this, quote, one factor jarring markets is a bill in Congress that would make President Trump's signature 2017 tax cuts permanent and could add trillions of dollars to federal debt. The U.S. credit rating downgrade and worries about debt and deficits could further upset financial markets if they begin to shake the safe haven status of Treasury bonds. Here's what one Federal Reserve official told our friend CNBC's Steve Leisman.
With that downgrade, it will have implications for the cost of capital and a bunch of other things. And so it could have a ripple through the economy. Today, things are very much in flux. There's a lot of uncertainty.
One of the key drivers of that uncertainty, Donald Trump's tariff scheme. As the country's largest retailer warns that prices there could go up as soon as the end of this month because of those tariffs, Trump is lashing out at them, of course, saying this, quote, between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, all caps, quote, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers, all caps, anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers, 3 exclamation points. Now, Walmart's price hikes cut against absolutely everything that Donald Trump has been telling the country about his tariff scheme. Stuff like this from his press secretary.
Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off.
That was never true. Still isn't. Trump's reaction to Walmart having to raise their prices reluctantly then is a bit of a tell. If tariffs are, as she said, a tax on foreign countries, as she'd like the country to believe, then why would Walmart need to, quote, eat the tariffs, as Trump said, instead of raising prices on its consumers? Now, the Murdoch-owned conservative-leaning Wall Street Journal editorial board clears it all up today. They write this, quote, Trump is trying to duck the political fallout for his misguided tariff policy by blaming everyone else. Americans are too smart to fall for it. We certainly hope so. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. With me at the table, executive editor and New York bureau chief for The Economist, Charlotte Howard is here, plus anchor and correspondent for Bloomberg News, David Gura is here. Also joining us, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill is here. Eating the tariffs, eating the dogs, eating the cats. This is ultimate sort of bottom of the barrel insult, Claire McCaskill. This weekend, it was saved for Walmart.
Yeah, I don't understand why the Democrats aren't saying he's a communist. You know, that's what they would be doing to us if a Democratic president tried to tell a private company what prices they can charge. That's called central government. That's called socialism/communism. And that's what he's basically saying. I mean, Walmart's whole business model is built on lower prices. They have no incentive to raise prices. They want to keep prices low, but they also need to make a profit. They can't go in the red. So the reason they're raising their prices is pretty simple. It's because what they're buying costs more. And our economy is a consumer economy, and it's based on what people can afford to buy. If you look around this country, Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, Target, all of these retailers all are built on a model of getting goods for the lowest price possible for the American consumer. That is 180 degrees from Trump's tariffs. What he's doing is what they would do in a communist government, telling companies what they can charge for their goods.
Claire, the Wall Street Journal has been scathing. If you look around for the most violent attack on Donald Trump's tariff policy, 9 times out of 10, 4 days out of 5, it is that editorial page. I hate asking you if you're surprised that none of your former Republican colleagues in Congress have anything bad to say about Donald Trump. But are you surprised that none of your former Republican colleagues in the Senate agree or can publicly agree with the Wall Street Journal editorial page? It's sort of policy Bible for a century.
It wouldn't be Monday if Nicole Wallace wasn't asking me, Claire, why aren't the Republican senators saying anything? A couple of them have. Rand Paul was pretty scathing over the weekend about what Trump is trying to do to the economy. But most of them are still scared. They're scared of him. They're scared of primary opponents. I'll tell you who's not scared. That's the investors. He can't bully the market. He and the richest man in the world that he hangs out with may be able to bully Republican politicians that want their job more than their integrity, but he can't bully the consumer who's going to see higher prices, and he can't bully the investors who are letting their voices be heard on Wall Street.
So explain to the non-economic journalists like myself what the Moody's downgrade means and how Trump's big, beautiful tax bill is related to it.
Well, I think it confirms what a lot of people have thought about this economy for a long time. So Moody's is the third, not the first, to do this. And back when S&P did it in 2011, it was a really seismic effect on the economy, them deciding that the U.S. didn't have this gold star AAA rating. But you read that report, and a few things stand out to me, one of which has to do with this tax bill and the fact that Moody's sees no concerted effort among lawmakers today to deal with these foundational problems with our economy, the size of the deficit, how fast it continues to grow, the lack of seriousness in the negotiations that are taking place, so much as there are negotiations taking place over this tax bill. There's also a couple nods that I think are fascinating, one of which is to they do raise from a negative outlook to a stable one. And what they're saying is that's in part because we have this independent Federal Reserve. Well, of course, that's something that's been, if not called into question, doubt has been cast on it in recent months from the comments from President Trump. And the other just has to do with, the fact that there's a separation of powers historically in this country. That's what our government is based on. They see the continuation of that as something that would keep this country on stable footing. I think buried in that is a not so subtle nod to the fact that these things are no longer as guaranteed as they used to be. So yes, Moody's is joining this club of these two other ratings agencies, but again, it's a confirmation of the fact there's a lack of seriousness with dealing with these issues in Washington today.
What does that mean? A lack of seriousness at a policy level from Trump and Bessent and those people?
I think it extends beyond that. I don't want to put this entirely at the feet of President Trump. And you saw Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, over the weekend saying, look, what you have here is something that's backward looking. We're dealing with what the Biden administration did.
They just invested a bunch of money in Trump's crypto policy. Well, everything will be fine. I mean, what was Bessent? I'm not going to play what Bessent said because I think Bessent in 11 years will be embarrassed about what he said.
I think that looking back with a wider aperture, you have both Democrats and Republicans not dealing with this issue of debt and deficits, and that's what Moody's is nodding to here. So yes, it's in part due to what Joe Biden did, but it's what President Trump did before that with the tax bill back in 2017. So again, it's resting the blame not entirely at the feet of Republicans here, but at politicians broadly.
The attack on Walmart was predictable, still shocking. Telling Walmart to eat the tariffs is all the things Claire said, as well as horrible politics. I mean, Walmart went in to the White House along with Home Depot and Target and tried to save Trump from being in this moment. But right now, the rubber's about to meet the road with the whole. I mean, Trump's been able to sort of delude his base that, oh, I didn't storm the Capitol on January 6th. I don't know who he said did it. Fake people, fake actors. Oh, I didn't destroy the rule of law. I didn't get indicted for crimes in 3 jurisdictions. I didn't get convicted at 34 of them in New York. And he's pulled it off to such great effect. He was reelected president. But he's not going to be able to tell people that he's not directly responsible for the prices at Walmart.
So I agree with that. And I think to add on to what we were just discussing, if you go back to 2011, back when S&P downgraded the U.S., yields did not rise at that point. It did not become more expensive for the American government to borrow money. Now yields are rising
Explain
about 5%. So back in 2011, it was still considered, America was still considered to be a safe haven for investment.
Like a good bet.
A good bet that you could borrow money, that the American government could borrow money and pay it back. And now you see investors starting to doubt that. And you see that today in the rising yields. And so the question is, how do these puzzle pieces fit together. Why are yields now rising when in 2011 they didn't? And you're right that Democrats and Republicans are to blame for the fiscal situation. What is new? Trump is new. Tariff uncertainty is new. Attacks on the Federal Reserve are new. And, the tariff policy, hugely chaotic. Even over the weekend last week, we heard Trump admitting that they don't have the capacity to negotiate with countries. So they're just going to send out letters to many countries telling them what the tariffs will be, the tariff rate will be in the next few weeks. That implies that the countries won't respond. I mean, it just is very evidently a chaotic policy. No matter how those tariff rates settle, they're not going to raise the revenue that Trump said that they would, which means America's fiscal situation will be even worse than it is now. So the combination of chaotic tariffs that withhold growth and investment, a deepening budget crisis, an economy that is paralyzed, consumers that are freaked out, as we saw last week from the University of Michigan Sentiment Survey, all of these things together are creating this maelstrom of uncertainty. And you see that playing out in what I think is a deepening fiscal problem.